I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. As you see behind me, what a great support staff that Hillsborough County Public Schools continues to have. The partnership that we have with Hillsborough County Sheriff Chad Chronister is like no other. And at the same token, being able to partner with the Tampa Police Department with Chief Connor as well, it really signifies our work. And not only do we have these two individuals that continue to stand with us to ensure we create the most robust, safe educational pathway, but we also have one of the best and the brightest, not only in the state, but throughout the nation, with Chief Newman, who continues to lead the way every single day, making certain that our children have the greatest, safest environment to be able to be educated within our school district. It is so sad to see what has transpired in the last 24 hours in Uvalde, Texas, and at Robb Elementary School. I can say that this is unimaginable, but openly, we've seen this over the years too many different times, and it is blatantly unacceptable. This type of behavior has no place in schools. Parents every single day trust myself, my leadership team, my school-based leaders, teachers and support staff, volunteers, wraparound services, to be able to drop their children off every day to be educated in a safe manner. For individuals to go and to make undesired decisions to really negatively impact our community is totally unacceptable. As a school district and as a leader of this organization, I want to make certain that our community understands that we have taken the necessary protocols to protect our students in the working conditions of our adults every single day. I think also Tallahassee, and for them to really, the movement they've made over the last couple of years to learn from the tragic event that happened in 2018 with the Marjory Stoneman Douglas event, has really allowed us to bring a commission together to listen, to learn, to grow, and to take proactive steps, such as making certain that every one of our campuses have a 4-foot perimeter fence around every one of our facilities, to make certain that we have surveillance in every one of our campuses, to make certain that we have put in place an armed asset individual that is ready and primed to address and protect our most precious assets with our students, at the same token with our employees on campus. We've also been able to make certain that we've also expanded mental health services to gain access to our children, to gain access to our families, and to make certain that we are taking proactive steps. The safety and security dollars continue to be spent in a proactive way to make certain that we have single points of entry, to make certain that we have reconfigured every one of our facilities to make certain we have organizational controls. It is no longer in Hillsborough County where you can walk into a school without being able to be buzzed in properly. We have film-resistant film that is on every one of our schools that is there to be able to be tended, but at the same time is bulletproof as well. So we're taking the necessary actions to stand together. And to be able to have the Sheriff Chronister, his individuals who are highly qualified, skilled, and trained on our campuses. And at the same token, being able to have the Tampa Police Department leaders on our campuses, and then also have qualified, skilled, trained guardians on our campuses, talks about the continued elements about how we are here to further to protect every one of our community members, every one of our students. We have to continue to wrap our arms around this situation. And as superintendent, my role and responsibility is to listen and to learn from the individuals behind me every single day so that we continue to have professional development and continue to be accessible and visible for every one of our students to make certain that we have that safe place. At this time, I'm going to ask one of my dear friends, one of the greatest leaders we have in Hillsborough County, to talk about his leadership and his partnership related to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, and that is Sheriff Chad Chronister.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent Davis. I tell you what, I'd be remiss if I didn't start by thanking our superintendent. I was one of the first people he called even before getting the job, when he thought he was in the running for the job. And he immediately began, "Hi, I'm Addison Davis. I'm from North Florida. Can we start talking about student improvement, school improvements, where we can improve?" He gave me his commitment that he would make student safety a priority, and you've never wavered, and thank you for that. Along the same lines, I want to highlight a few partnerships. You know, besides the superintendent, someone who works very closely with him is Chief John Newman with our school security. Phenomenal to work with. Along with our, and it'll make sense here in just a minute, bear with me for a second, here, our county commission and our school board. All of these bodies, since I became the sheriff almost 5 years ago, and we have met, have said, listen, student safety will always remain our top focus. And we have worked together, this coalition, to do just that. I feel extremely comfortable. I feel extremely fortunate that I'm standing here today and we're highlighting all the mechanisms that we have put in place, and it will most certainly reduce the likelihood of some type of tragedy happening like we continue to see around the state and around the country from happening here in Hillsborough County. When you learn everything that we've learned from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas in a report that was put out, you know, the camera surveillance system that had such a tremendous delay. All our schools have surveillance systems, and they're instant, they're real time. So wherever you believe someone is where they're at. It's not that they're trying to play catch up and the shooter's already left the campus. The single entry and exit points, that's come at a great expense. Even retrofitting some of these older schools to make sure that a person can only come into school one way and has to go past school administration to get there. They can't get anywhere else, on the campus anywhere else. The superintendent highlighted the fencing. Every school now being fenced with secured with fencing. You know, our strategic system. We were the first to do it, our strategic system, where any Hillsborough County school employee, faculty or staff, if they believe there's an emergency, can hold this button down, and immediately a diagram of that school pops up and alerts law enforcement. So when the cavalry come in instances like this where every second counts, we know exactly where to go. When a visitor comes on school campus, they're provided this too. So if a visitor goes from a visitor to a bad guy, we instantly know where that person's at too. That's all comes at a great cost. That's not cheap technology. And the latest mechanism that we added was our bidirectional antennas. These schools are built. They're built for a purpose. They're the first shelters that we turn to when we talk about a hurricane's coming. A hurricane's bearing down, staffing these shelters and going to these shelters. Well, it worked out great. They're phenomenal. They're phenomenally built. The problem is you can't communicate in them because they're so phenomenally built. Again, working with our Superintendent Addison, Chief Newman, and our Citizen Referendum Oversight Committee, I feel extremely blessed that I'm the co-chair working with Betty Castor and a tremendous group of community individuals that, yes, they've made comfort, they've made improvements in our schools. Our child now has air conditioning. They have these modern comforts. A big portion has gone towards technology to make sure our students have access to the latest and greatest technology. But a big portion of that was student safety. And that's why I embraced it so selfishly, if you would, is because I knew the benefit that it would have. We are light years ahead of a lot of other counties, a lot of other jurisdictions, again, with focus remaining on student safety. Now, you can't talk about student safety without talking about safety of that child getting to and from school. What does that look like? We already oversee all the school crossing guards at elementary schools, but there's a lot of middle school children that also walk to and from school. Again, working with the county commission, they immediately funded this program, so we now have crossing guards in all of our middle schools. Again, a state-of-the-art approach when you talk about student safety. It will continue to be a focus. A big point of contention that came out after Marjorie Stoneman Douglas back in 2018 was a lot of finger pointing. Who was responsible for what? Who was going to train what? Was there going to be teachers? Was there going to be janitors that were going to be armed? Was student safety going to be their responsibility? And a lot of finger pointing that, okay, who's going to train and who's going to pay for what? I'm here to tell you with all transparency, we never had difficult discussions like that. Everyone called and said, hey, listen, what are we going to do? What's the best option for our county? Well, we're very fortunate that we have Hillsborough County Schools public security here, the security in place, where almost 90% of their workforce is retired law enforcement or military. Who would we want to task with the safety of our children? As a parent, I can tell you, I find extreme comfort in that. So we went to the county commission. We all spoke of how we wanted to do it, and that's why I made the decision that we wouldn't arm our kids We wouldn't arm faculty and staff. I thought that a janitor didn't want to be in. And listen, for any teacher out there, no disrespect, superintendent, for any teacher out there who wants to be tactical and be in law enforcement, we're hiring. We're short. But I only say that because as short as the sheriff's office and agencies find themselves, law enforcement around the country, around the state, it's a priority to me that we have 47 school resource deputies in all the schools, that we take on the task. Every single public schools safety and security officers that you see there are sheriff's office trained. They go through intense training. Not all of them make it. Intense training with one focus. Their focus isn't to handle anything else, but to make sure that our children, the children in our community, are safe, and that no one ever comes into an elementary school and harms one of our children. And then as deputies, we handle the middle schools and the high schools already. Again, with the same focus, to make sure that our children can focus on being children. Schoolwork is hard enough. Let them go to school and worry about getting educated. They shouldn't have to worry about going to school and wonder, am I safe here today? Is today the day that I live or I die? That's our job as parents, as the sheriff, as the partnerships that we share here. And we do it, and we'll continue to do it. There will be no greater focus than focusing on student safety here in our county. Thank you. Was I supposed to introduce the next guest? I'm sorry. O'Connor, you're good.
Good morning, everybody. As the sheriff mentioned, and Superintendent Davis and Chief John Newman behind me, what I'd like to emphasize is the relationships, that we can't do this as a single entity, is keeping our students safe alone. The relationships and the partnerships that you're seeing here today is what makes this happen the most. In order to keep our students safe, we have to effectively communicate and we have to effectively work together. As you all know, there is strength in numbers, and that's why we stand up here today unified to show all of you and show the community that we stand together in solidarity to protect the safety of our students. The Tampa Police Department is committed with working with their community partners, not only to communicate effectively, but also to let everybody know that we are going to do this through our community relationships internally and externally as well. We have ramped up security a bit at our schools for the last few days of school, but we do that through our relationships with the Hillsborough County School and the Sheriff's Office and everybody else to work collectively to do that. I think that everybody has already said that the priority of our safety of our students is number one, and the Tampa Police Department firmly joins in that belief. Thank you.
Good morning. Today's a tough day. I'm looking at all of you. I'm sure somebody in this crowd's got students or friends that work at our school districts. This morning, my daughter called me. She's an elementary teacher. I had to assure her that it's okay to go to work today. And she's been teaching for a long time. My wife's a teacher. She looked at me this morning with a little bit of, hey, is it going to be a good day? How many people across the county, across the state and the country did that this morning? In this district, I'm really proud of the partnerships that we have. You know, we think about Columbine and Parkland and Santa Fe, Oxford, and now Robb Elementary School. How many small children or young adults will never realize a full life because they were taken out because of an active shooter? It's a heavy lift. And since I've been here now 8 years, after nearly 30 years at Tampa Police Department, I'm proud to say that the school board, the superintendent, and my staff has risen to the challenge to make sure when you drop off your treasures, and that's what they are, they're going to come home safely. That's our charge. That's our responsibility. But you can have all those resources that the superintendent talked about, Sheriff Chronister and Mary O'Connor, but now you have to have that human capital. You have to have that buy-in. We drill every month. We have ramped up our mental health teams. The teachers and the principals are rock stars. When they started this career, they never signed up to worry about an active assailant. They never signed up to worry about hard corners, line of sight, OPEC window coverings, bullet-resistant film. They signed up to work in a nice environment to provide our treasures with the best possible education they can. So my charge as a chief, after I look back at all those tragedies, is to make sure that we're doing that with fidelity. There's human capital involved. There's teachers, custodians, student nutrition. Our bus drivers pick up those treasures every day. We worry about our bus drivers. The strategic technology allows 25,000 employees to be able to call for help anytime, anywhere if they see a threat. And when it comes to dealing with a threat, you have to identify it, you have to communicate it, and then you allow the people behind us to mitigate it. Yesterday, before law enforcement got there, teachers did what they were supposed to do at that school. I'm sure of it. And they never signed up for that when they became educators. So we do a very good job in the district, and we'll continue to do that. We'll continue to do that with the partnerships that I have behind me with my Major O'Day and the other 400 school security officers that work for the district to make sure our kids, our faculty, our visitors, they come to our sites, they feel safe, they look around, and they know that their campus is safe, and they know they're going to come home. Strangely, you don't see that. I don't want you to see that. Safety should be invisible. Otherwise, it's not a campus, is it? It's a detention facility, or it looks like some sort of major league research and development company that you can't get into. We want our campuses to be welcoming. We want them to be nurturing, but at the same time, we want them to be secure. So we do everything we possibly can with our teachers. We drill them. We train the principals each and every year on active assailant, on threat assessments, on lockdowns, lock-in, lock-out. The strategic technology is a game changer, tells us exactly where that person is calling for the help within 1 foot. And I don't care if it's the second floor, third floor, or bottom floor. Imagine that, 26,000 almost security personnel. It's a force multiplier. So it's a tough day to get up and go to work if you're a teacher. It's a tough day for a parent to drop their kids off. All we can tell you at the school district, we're doing the very, very best we can to keep your treasures safe. And with that, I'll let Superintendent close out the press conference. Superintendent?
Thank you, Chief. As you can see, this partnership is intensely focused on safety as it is our greatest priority. And I think this team behind me that continues to stand in front, continues to be a downfield blocker, continues to take proactive steps to be able to protect our greatest assets. And from us, I've said it often, and as we are transitioning out of this pandemic, hopefully, and we talked about how COVID was the pandemic, we transitioned to mental health being our true pandemic. And for us, we know that today may be trying and tough for community members, it may be for educators, for school-based leaders, for parents, for our students. Know that we have mental health wraparound services that stand ready through our school counselors, our psychologists, our social workers. We stand ready and primed to be able to help anyone in need, to be able to get them to a comfortable place where they psychologically understand that our school district will continue to take proactive steps related to safety. So we appreciate your time today, and at this time we'll answer any questions that you may have.
If I could, I'd like to ask a question of Chief O'Connor.
Go ahead.
And then have Sheriff Connors to respond
Sure.
to the same thing. And that is, you alluded to this, about ramping up security at the end of the year, because there's always the fear of copycat, or there's a lot of stressors to children at the end of the year, whatever's going on in their lives. So what is going on specifically, to the extent that you can, to improve security?
Well, you mentioned stressors. I mean, obviously, I think anybody that sent their children to school today is pretty stressed out. So with that being said, Chief Newman and his staff do an outstanding job of providing safety for the schools inside the city of Tampa. What we are doing is just providing a little bit of assistance and a little bit of extra presence. We're having our special operations units, our motors, and some other units go out to all of the elementary schools, the middle schools, just at the ingress and egress of today for the rest of the week.
Sheriff, I know that you are responsible for a lot of other schools outside of the city limits, so what is going on in the county?
Yeah, well, again, I love the plan that we have in place. We already have armed law enforcement in our middle schools and our high schools, and I'm extremely confident in the training of the school security officers at our elementary schools. We too, for the remainder of the week, will have a more of an overt presence at the schools, but also at our school crossings. You'll see a lot more uniform presence there. Again, just to make sure the children are reminded that they are safe and that they should feel safe going to school. And again, to remind the parents too that, hey, listen, we're here for you. We certainly empathize for what you're going through. I did want to comment rather quickly. Everyone knows how big I am on second chances and diversion programs and fixing those who can be fixed. But because the way we respond to a school-based threat, and that's one of the things I failed to highlight when I was here earlier, is that we act immediately. We send everyone we can. We get school security to do a threat assessment. We're going to the child's home. There's no delay. So whatever time of the day or the middle of the night that these threats come in, we act on it immediately. It's not that, hey, we'll get to it tomorrow. And that's why I have that zero tolerance stance. There is no, hey, just kidding, I was only joking. You know, and I continue to tell parents, please urge your children to know that that's not an area. You won't do it at an airport or on an airplane. Don't do it when it's in reference to our schools. There is zero tolerance. Your child will be prosecuted to the full extent of the law, and it is a felony, which we want to see none of our children saddle with. There is no joking when it comes to school security.
I have a question for Superintendent Davis.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's about social emotional learning, which is a concept that was really embraced after Parkland as a way to help build empathy and respect in children and avoid bullying and social isolation. Now, social emotional learning is under attack from the governor, from the Republican leadership. How committed are you to keeping social emotional learning as part of the educational process in light of this shift?
Openly, it's a must. You know, we have taken on and adopted a number of curriculums that really have allowed us to gain access to children and students and help them become a better self. Whether it's Second Step, whether it's 7 Mindsets, whether we leverage frameworks, all of those have worked in concert to be able to give students the foundation of making the right decisions, to feel comfortable, to have that great confidence, to leverage the resources that they have within our school district, within our teachers, our support staffs, our school-based leaders. So from our side, but we're still going to continue to implement learning mechanisms and measures that really allow our children to have better organizational skills, better communication skills, better opportunities to engage with others, you know, to really focus on positive behavior supports, to be that proactive intervention versus being able to be reactive to solutions. So we'll look at restorative practice boards, student advisory boards, all that to have an inclusive approach. So for us, it's about creating the right mindset for our students. One that students, when they walk into the room, they feel comfortable and confident enough not only to attack content, but facilitate the learning every single day and be exemplars for those around them and for themselves.
Mr. Davis, you talked about having single point entry at schools, armed security at schools, the window coverings at schools. Next year is a new year. Mr. Newman hit on this, but you don't want to have an armed camp. What can you do, or what would you like to do more than what we have right now?
Can you answer this weekend?
Yes, I've got graduation here in a couple minutes. Yeah, I've already done 21. I got about 14 left.
Yeah.
But you know, we all first of all, I know we want to go, but first of all, we're thankful from Tallahassee being able to give us safety and security dollars. Is it really cover the expanded costs of everything that we need to do? The answer is no. It's really a underfunded mandate. But however, there's proactive solutions. We all can be creative. Every day, the world of safety and tightening our processes and hardening our schools, there's availability for us to get better in that process because we have to have a continuous improvement mindset. So I'm going to let Chief talk about the proactive steps that he would love to implement if he had some additional funding to do so. But you know, first of all, I just want to thank everyone for being here. It is very important to us that we stand strong and united to be able to further protect our students. And sorry to run, but I've got kids and families waiting for us, and we better rock and roll.
The rest can stay, but
I just want to throw it out there to any of you. Can any of you identify what is going wrong in our society? This is the only country where this happens. What is going on?
Go ahead.
I was wondering. if I might-
This is the problem. The issue is that we have to reclaim our dinner table. You know, the core values. When I'm growing up at 5:30 in the evening, my butt better be at the dinner table. My family is there asking me, how was your day? What did you learn? Did you have any problems? How can I help you? At the same token, being involved in this community. Students being involved in co-curricular and extracurricular activity, being involved in Boy Scouts. You know what the problem is that we've got parents that are working multiple jobs and are potentially absent in this process. And the other issue is social media. Social media, that we have all these platforms that we have to learn, that has created significant amount of noise related to interaction. So, you know, at that time, we've got to have not only controls of what we have in our house, but we've got to be role models, and openly we've got to be life coaches to our children every single day. That has to take place. And then I say this, and I know I've got to go. The other issue is that when you look around this country, leaders need to pay attention what's going on. When you look at Sandy Hook, when you look at what's happened in Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act in South Florida and Parkland, Florida, we put an entire commission together in Florida that really talked about proactive steps of what's working, what's not, and what we can do differently. I encourage everyone throughout this nation to actively understand what that task force implemented and learn from and implement it. No one should be able to walk into a school without a control. No one should ever at this stage, at this particular time. If that happens, we set ourselves up for failure every single day. That's why you got to have support staff like these individuals behind you that stand up, push us, hold us accountable, and do great things every day. Sorry, I'm going to get fired up.
Sheriff or chief or sheriff, anyone, this is the only country where this happens.
A lot of it goes back to just what the superintendent said, the societal pressure these kids are under because of social media, the bullying that they're enduring because of social media, the family unit being eroded and broken down. A lot of that has contributed to one factor, and that factor is these students that are now facing some type, in some way, shape, form, or fashion, some type of crisis when it comes to mental health. I think we've made some great strides here in Hillsborough County in terms of identifying and having someone in our schools, and we'll continue to build up. When you ask Chief Newman what he's going to want to do, it's something that we talk about almost on a daily basis. It's having more mental health resources, not just for our community, but especially for our children. Our children, where we can get them at a young age and get them maybe the medication they need, maybe the counseling they need, maybe someone just to talk to that they need, and mitigate that mental health before it's able to turn into a mental health crisis and we're faced with an individual like we faced again yesterday.
I think there's an elephant in the room, and it's called guns. Does anybody want to say anything about the statistics of gun ownership? Not putting you on the spot politically, but why aren't we talking about guns at all right now?
That's a politically charged question. I don't think it's appropriate for this press conference. I think that certainly would be a discussion at another time. But even when we went back to the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas and we all sat down how we're going to keep our, that was a big belief of mine that introducing more firearms into school campuses was never going to be the answer. Turning our teachers, our faculty, our staff that are tasked with what I think a daunting task of educating our youth shouldn't be turned into tactical policemen or officers on. And we focused on those. We focused on those resources, making sure that our focus turned to hardening the schools, getting the kids to and from school safely, and then harden the schools so they would never have to face anything like this.
Last question.
John, if you had on the ending budget.
Well, right now, I'll tell you what you'll probably see next year. First of all, I want to talk about the mental health, because that's a big part of it. We need to really do a lot more in this state. What came out of Governor Scott's mandates after Parkland was a game changer. Texas has a guardian law. It's been in place since 07 or 08, but it was optional. Here, an armed person on every campus in the state of Florida is not an option. Drills once a month is not an option. Now, with Alyssa's law, you have to have an emergency notification system, not an option. That was a heavy lift for the third largest district in the state, seventh largest in the country. Putting building signs on our campuses was the easiest, hardest thing I've ever experienced. It's not just about putting 4 bolts on. Everything was a lift. That included the folks behind us and our facility and operational people. Our chief operating officer is here right now. You'll see more controls on our access controls. We want to get to the point that we don't have any keys in our campus. Everything should be fobbed. More control over the movement of our campus is what we'll move to in terms of target hardening. But mental health, CSTAG model, training these people on predictability, I want to ask every one of you here right now, who wouldn't have been in that kid's backpack in Oxford and they didn't go in his backpack, and I'm dumbfounded by it? We would have. Maybe not, maybe February 13th, 2018, we might not have. But we did after February 15th, we would have been, we're in that backpack. So we do a lot with mental health. Every school has a threat assessment team. Every team member, at least one, because you got to train 25,000, has to be trained in youth mental health first aid. So we have teams on every school that are identified. I have to show those in an audit every year, and they handle threats. So if a threat comes in, it might very well be transient, which is a low threat. But if it's a substantive or serious threat, we start bringing in all of our solutions. Is it mental health crisis counseling? Is it taking the parent and asking them to get a mental health expert? And they come together and they provide those services. We can do a lot more because I believe that's the only predictor you're going to have. Oxford was this close in predicting that that student was going to do something horrible, and they missed that opportunity for a number of reasons. I get frustrated as a school safety specialist when I see what we did here in Florida, and it wasn't easy. I got here in 2014, I had 78 people. I now have nearly 400, and I needed their help to do that. That's not cheap. So you got to make the tough decisions. So most of us become a student of the game. Columbine, Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook, we started doing fences with no funding. Now it's mental health. I have no idea what was wrong with this kid. I have no idea how he got his guns. But we're going to try to make sure that we're doing what we can. You'll see some hardening features this year, like more access control. You won't see behind the scenes, and I'm hoping to get more mental health support.
Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you all.